Collective Awakening podcast,
sharing truth and knowledge in this time of conscious awakening
with Chris and Stephen. Hello friends, welcome to the Collective Awakening podcast. Just want to welcome all our listeners and everybody who's joining us live on Facebook tonight. Hope you're all well. Chris and Stephen with you, and tonight, or on this episode, we're going to be talking consciousness awakening. And what we mean by this in this episode is to share with you the journey we've all been on. Some would say the last couple of years, some would say since around 2012, since the shift to what many would call to the vibration of the new earth. And as the earth changes its vibration, we are also changing our vibration, and changes is in letting go of the old and welcoming in the new, internally and externally. And we're going to talk about all these subjects, and we're going to share with you the best of our experience as well. So, but what I'm going to do first is I'm going to share with you a writing. Now, this writing comes from our spiritual leader at the Purple Mountain, Malachi, and it was channeled to a very, very dear friend of ours, and possibly our first guru ever, Anita Williams. She was a trance medium, and she channeled some wonderful writing. So we're going to share this with you. And anybody who's quite familiar or in our community in the Purple Mountain, you would have probably heard this many times. But as we say, good words and words of wisdom never grow old. In fact, they only grow better with age, I think. And this writing is entitled Head Held High. So I hope you enjoy it. Be prepared for changes, for they will surely come your way. You will not change what will occur, whatever you do or say. So go along with all that will take place and smile as you go on your way. For others notice what you do and notice what you say. There may be some who will laugh at you and say that you are weak. But is it not what you may have, the courage and strength they seek? There will be those who gently say to you, I wish I had the strength to deal with life the way you do. When they ask you what it is that gives you strength of mind, tell them you look within yourself to see what you could find. There were many things that you did not like, so changes had to be made. You had to put right the many things so you would never be afraid of who you are and what you become and all the things you know. By looking deep within yourself, you have helped yourself to grow into someone who stands tall and strong for all the world to see, into someone who can tell the world, I know who I am me. So I send many blessings to all those who brought that writing forward to us. So I'm going to come over to Stephen. Stephen, so when we talk about this journey we've been on, but it isn't something new. It's in a way continuous, a continuous evolution of our soul, our spirit, and a continuous evolution of this earth and this world we live in as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love that writing, Chris. Thanks for sharing. I never knew that Chris was going to read out, and that's the surprise, even us as podcast presenters. But sort of something that I think and I feel that is really, really poignant in that writing there, Chris, when that line where people asked, you know, where do you find the strength? And people say that about me and you sometimes, Chris, don't they? Oh, look how wonderful the Purple Mountain, look how wonderful your podcast, you know, and they think that this was all handed to us on a golden plate and they've not seen the graft, the hard work, the dedication, the commitment, the respect, the gratitude, or the energy, the endless volunteers. But that point as well, where in that line with Malachi's writing, where you were asked, where did you find that strength? And what I looked within. And I think that's a big thing at the moment. I feel everybody is looking outwardly for answers. They think a tablet will give them the answer for their pain. They think a doctor will give them the answer of their medical condition. They seek a priest, a nurse, a teacher. And actually, really, what we're looking at the moment is moving away from outward perspective and looking within. And when we look within, I feel we start listening. And I think everybody talks, and I think when somebody talks a lot, it's somebody that maybe, I'm not saying this in a judgment way, maybe in locked in the mind center. And I feel, and the Native American Indians were very big at this as well, when they used to sit in teepees, when you used to have council meetings. Not the council meetings, I'm sure, that goes on now in our local councils, but they will sit, the elders, and they would sit and listen, and they would listen. And I think this is a big thing at the moment, is going within, listening. What's going on within you? How does the heart feel? And when we start to listen, we find awareness, I feel. And I feel that's where I am at the moment. I think that's where a lot of people are at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've said there, and I do. The only thing I'd slightly disagree on, going to be controversial, is that I don't feel it's everybody. I feel there are those that are still on certain pathways, but there's a lot of people. We use that word, who are awakening, and I think we've a big change we made at the Purple Mountain, which is a great example. Predominantly, when we started, we were running clairvoyant services, which still do run now. But we found that there's been this progression naturally, not something we thought up in a meeting or anything like that, that has naturally come.
Yeah.
We've seen this wave of people who say, well, we love that. And we have so much appreciation for what we've received, but we want to do the work ourselves. We want to discover, who am I? Why am I here? What is my true self? I want to break away from things that make me unhappy and make me miserable. So that over the past 2 years, we've actually, which we were told in the early days anyway, moved into being more of a healing center than ever. And we still obviously work with spirit on the level of clairvoyance ourselves, which we have great respect for. But that wave of change, to me, illuminates what's happening in the world, because I do feel that there are a large amount of people who are breaking away from the worshipping of a guru or the worshipping of anyone, mostly because we're seeing a lot of these leaders we put on platforms are disappointing us. And I'm going to give my take on why they're disappointing us, because we shouldn't be looking to them to save us. We should be looking to ourselves. It's the man in the mirror. The miracle is within you. There's some wonderful tools out there. Of course, you can receive readings, a proof of the spirit world, and guidance, and many who work on past life readings and etc. Healing therapies, one-to-one healing ceremonies, some wonderful work. And I'm not dismissing any of that powerful work, but what I'm saying is that can only illuminate that miracle that is already within you. So it sparks that light within you. And I actually feel more and more people are realizing that now. And it's not easy, because it's said in that writing, when we look within, it isn't easy. And it is easy to place the blame on others. You know, a classic is, I'll be happy when. Now, when we find ourselves saying that, that's when we catch ourselves saying it, because, I'll be happy when this happens. I'll be happy when that happens. But actually, you can be happy now. You can be absolutely happy where you are now. I feel I'm talking quite a lot here, Stephen. So I'm going to let you have an input to what I've shared there.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. Again, even with us, we sit and listen, and we all get inspired. We're getting inspired by spirit now. But I think I feel as well, where you were talking about the Purple Mountain, I think as an observer of what's happening in the world the past couple of years, I feel that a lot of this work, even 20, 30 years ago was very underground. I mean, even some of the circle work, it was invitation only. It was quite secretive. And I feel that can't happen now. A lot of us have to step from the light into the shadow, the shadow of the earth, so that we can illuminate the light. But I feel it's all about community. And I feel a lot of people, maybe it's that there is a projection of the shadow self, the fear self tried to sort of instill fear that we're all divided, wants to keep us divided. And actually there's more people like us, the listeners, that are going through some kind of conscious awakening, or have gone through conscious awakening and still going through conscious awakening. It doesn't just end there, it's a continuation. And I feel it's all about making connections of like-minded souls, and it nourishes me, and I know it nourishes you, Chris. I mean, we have the Purple Mountain, but it's not our center. We are just very simply holders of space, of this sacred space. We can't do the work we do without people coming and making that connection. And I know you feel the same, of the wonderful people, beautiful souls that we've connected with these past couple of years, and also the many people that have tested our patience, that has tested our boundaries as well.
Well, no, this it's a good example for anybody who's at the moment. If somebody's tested your patience at work or in any situation, just stand back where you can and say, "This person's been brought into my life to teach me something." So that's really important. But what I want to touch upon, and I don't know if anybody's watched this wonderful documentary, and I've been following this guy for a while, Graham Hancock, and it's on Netflix now. Now it's very interesting with this guy. He's a journalist and has unearthed, a lot in human history. Very passionate, and he is one of those people that has gone through the ridicule and been attacked and all that. And I was watching it last night, thinking, "Wow!" And now it's being acknowledged in the mainstream, and I feel that's something that's come about the last couple of years. Another one, controversially or not, is David Icke as well. And what I'm finding is, as people are awakening, a lot of these theories that some may dismiss as crazy or mad are actually being substantiated. They say, well, we want to hear more from these people now. They can guide us. And I find that quite inspirational. That's a sign of change to me. It might be a very slow shift, but it's coming, And to me, some of the wisest teachers, if you find in human history, are the ones that have been ridiculed. Early on, they would have been ridiculed quite a lot and come through it. So it's another. All these are little signs of. I think it's, what's the documentary called, Stephen? Ancient
Apocalypse.
Yeah, it's on the top 10 anyway. I don't want to, yeah. But
Yeah.
watch it, or look up Graham Hancock. Interesting stuff. But the point I was making is, these are all examples. If I was talking to you about this guy 2 or 3 years ago, or even David Icke, I feel there would be more people watching this podcast who would be saying, "Oh, not him." But I feel things have come around a bit, and it's not like a change of mind. It's more an awakening in ourselves, that knowledge that possibly would not have resonated before is starting to. And that's the same for me and Stephen. Probably if you'd have took us back 2 or 3 years, we'd be talking slightly differently than we do now. So it's this constant evolution. But what I want to bring into it is also the symptoms of this, that can be very interesting, can't they, Stephen? That we can feel in our bodies as well, so we can physically feel this vibrational change that can come about.
Yeah, I mean, history, if anything, history's taught us. It's there to teach us. History is there to teach us. It's not there to romanticize anything, and sometimes history can make us feel incredibly uncomfortable. And I think what Graham Hancock does, and why people like Graham is so brilliant, is that he doesn't say what I'm saying is right. I'm just trying to look at another perspective. And I think, unfortunately, in the academic, in the scientific, or any form of academic sort of vibration, there is this particular narrative that has been placed upon in our history books. Even us as children at school, we get taught a certain way, this particular narrative. And I think, if anything, we should be open enough to look at different perspectives, different opinions, and I think it's healthy. And I feel that I've watched the documentary. I watched it within a day and a half. I absolutely loved it. They're only about half an hour. Yeah,
He totally binge watched it.
yeah, and it's only half an hour long, and I feel it really, what David Icke, I think he talks about in one of his books, get off your backside, humanity, stop sitting there all comfortable, question what's bloody going on around you. And I feel that is what's trying to teach us. We're not saying that what me and Chris are saying we're right, but we're creating a platform of, we're here to question things. Human beings, we're inquisitive, we're nosy, we're not there just to sit there and just accept. And I think that's sort of the valuable lesson I feel at the moment.
I think that's what's been, as a sort of, we call it like a shadow of humanity that's come up and been quite relevant in the past 2 years. It's interesting that about 10 years ago now, a powerful message was brought to us from Spirit. And it was always question what you see, feel, and experience. And that to me is a constant with everything. But there are some things, and we've seen this is teaching us, where we might question things. For example, and it is only just throwing an example out there, we might question our human history, we might be questioning the government, we might be questioning the NHS. And what is brought back to us, why do we need this? Why do we need that? A fair question. Let's have a discussion. And what you hit with is, you can't say that. Well, actually, I can. We can question things. And I think that's important, to have a discussion that we can discuss. Nothing is absolute, is it, in the world we live in? But some things, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you make an excellent point there, really, and that's what Graham talks about, is that if anything, our history has shown us, in any form of history, why history, the truth, I'm talking about truth that sometimes seeps through, is that often people, the most people like David Icke, Graham Hancock, and hundreds of others, we talk about not just the past 20 years, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, 200 years, is being the very brave and courageous people that have stepped out from the norm, people that have stepped out. People call people like us sheep, zombies, and we need people to step back into the power and to really start questioning what's happened. But it has maybe people like David Icke and Graham Hancock, they've come back to play that role. And I call people like us seedlings. We're planting seeds. We're
Well,
here to question things.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think, when I talk about people having a bit of a hard time, teachers and such over the years, I, I don't mean that to place them as the victim, because they would have known before returning to the earth plane, this is the task at hand. It's going to be tough. But through that experience, they would have looked for that experience spiritually. There's something in that. And I think David Icke made a very good point on a recent podcast he did, when he was getting quite a lot of his abuse after initially sort of coming out with his initial teachings to the world. Is you When you're getting bombarded with all that negativity, there's two ways it can go. Either we end up shivering in the corner, ended up being a nervous wreck, or we stand up and stand true. And if you truly know yourself, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And actually, letting go of what people think is big. Actually, it's something I've worked on myself on quite a bit, and continue to, because that question could come up quite well. What will people think? And every time that question comes up, instantly we put ourselves number two. Instantly, anything we think or feel comes second. When really, if we're just following our true path the best way we can, That's all we can do, really can. And even when we talk about awakening the conscious, it isn't like pulling open an Easter egg. It has to naturally. It's going with the flow or growing with the flow, as you like to say, Stephen.
Yeah, grow with the flow. And the end of the day, truth is truth.
Yeah,
It would be arrogant for me to say, "Well, I have the truth." This is what's been going on for humanity for tens of thousands of years. Why religion was created, because there were people that that basically said, "I know truth. I'm the only one that can speak to God." And really, that's wrong. We are all the children of God. We are all brothers and sisters. We all have the power of light and truth within us. We're not saying we're talking from a pedestal there. What we try to do, even our little center at the Purple Mountain, is create a sacred space for people to see the power that's within them, to invoke, to empower what something's already within. I mean, when we look at David G did a fantastic guided meditation, and it's something that I must have listened to that guided meditation 100 times. And it's only the past 3 months when I listened to it again, did I really understand the words? I mean, how amazing is that? And he talked about love. People seek love, oh, I'll have a child. It will teach me about love. I'll buy the nicest car, buy the biggest house. I'll have hundreds of friends. Love will not be found outwardly. Love is already within us. What we need to look at is to bring our awareness to the barriers that stops us seeing the love or feeling the love that's within us. And I think this is a big testament at the moment, Chris, when we're looking at truth. And you talk about truth quite elegantly, where you say, well, truth is truth. Truth doesn't mind being questioned. And there was a point there in the Graham Hancock documentary where one of the last episodes, and I'm not going to spoil it, he was refused to go to this sacred site in the Native American Indian, this sacred site. And basically they wrote him an email and said, you are questioning our belief. And for me, the way I saw it was, well, what Graham's done is he's triggered something, these triggers. And I feel that if you are triggered, then maybe there's something within you, if that makes sense. We're there to question, going back to a full circle. But truth is truth, Chris.
and we should be able to have open discussions because everybody is also entitled to their opinions, if that makes sense. It's what fits right for you, and nobody should be questioning that. And it's good to exchange. I mean, I love it talking about things like this, and I actually like my belief systems or things that are brought to me or teachings that make me question my own belief systems a little bit. And sometimes they'll resonate and sometimes not, but it's good, it's healthy to have challenges in our life that encourage us to grow and to learn and to question not only our surroundings, but our connection. And I don't think there's many people on this earth that haven't at least thought at one time, who am I and what am I doing here? Those questions, and I think those questions are coming up more and more for people now. Myself and Stephen speak to a lot of people in our community and meet a lot of people, and that question's coming up. People, in a way, I guess the way to say is they're unraveling and letting go of what they don't need, and even with conditions, states of illnesses that they found themselves in a rut, that there are many that we meet that really want to unravel away from that identity that's been given to them, even by that system that says, well, you are this now and you are that forever. Well, no, don't have to be, actually. That's just a word.
And what happens when you do question things? I feel sort of in the very early stages of your awakening, when you start questioning things, when your awareness expands, like your crown chakra opens up for the first time, and you can feel very vulnerable at that time. You can get very scared, very frightening, but also it can be incredibly liberating that, remember, you're not on your own. But I think, and I feel sort of, I want to make a good point there, Chris, go back onto your point there, where it's something that probably anybody listening can resonate with, and how I felt. And I want to share everybody sort of a little bit about my story there. That I've always felt, and I don't know how you felt, Chris, when I was younger, and you hear this with a lot of people that I've spoken to, where particularly as children, we feel very different. I felt very different to everybody else, my friends. I was very, very badly bullied as a young boy. I felt very vulnerable, very alone. But when I grew up, when I began my awakening, I going back, reflecting back to that childhood trauma, which was very much trauma, was all for a reason, was all for a purpose. I didn't understand it at that time. And I feel that when you speak to a lot of people, they do, when they say, I don't know who I am, and often that question is posed as children. A lot of people say, I felt that when I was 5. I felt that when I was 6 or 7. I knew that I felt I was different. I couldn't put my finger on it. I was different.
I think that's the importance of community now, because quite often when we come to, could be a spiritual center, it could be any sort of meeting or retreat, it's important to try and connect with like-minded people, and that's coming about more. And you do find them stories when people open up and they know they're talking to somebody that's not going to disregard them as of imagining things or something, that's going to take them seriously. That's a wonderful way to connect with like-minded people. And when you start sharing these experiences, what's amazing is that you find, number one, you're not on your own. Many people having the same experiences in different ways.
Absolutely. And just continuing there, what you're saying there, Chris, when people are questioning who they are. And I felt that because I'm half German, and when my mum met my stepdad and we came to England, I remember, if you remember that, Chris, I asked Spirit through with Anita, who's the trance medium, and Watonka came through, and I asked one of the first questions, why did I end up, out of all the places in the world, did I end up being in the little small fishing town called Fleetwood, that I've met my best friend Chris, and he took me to a spiritual church, and everything is divinely orchestrated. I believe that. And coming from a place that I absolutely loved, Germany, where I got a lot of my family still there, and I miss dearly the culture, the food, the people. I was almost symbolically torn away, like being torn away from, if you can imagine, Chris, being torn away from a very high vibration in spirit and then coming back to this earth plane vibration. You're thinking, oh my God, why am I here? And I'm sure we've all felt that. You feel that sometimes, Chris. You say, why am I here? Spirit, why am I here? And I remember Anita used to say, when she used to get fed up, she used to call them aliens, go away, aliens. And so even as mediums and holders of space, we still feel the heaviness sometimes, and sort of coming back from
I think the message is, Stephen, is simply I don't feel anybody is godlike or all knowing on the earth plane. We're all still learning and experiencing and growing in our own way, and we all have that shadow side. We all have our challenges, and I feel that's really good to show that vulnerability, because actually it's what connects us. Uh, if there is any form of absolute perfection on the earth plane for beings, I haven't witnessed it yet. Because to me, we're all here for a reason, to play an important role, but also we're here to gain experiences, and the best experiences are by getting things wrong as well, and going through tough times. So we're all going through it all the time. There's something I was a little bit, I suppose, naive about when I got involved in the spiritual movement, is I thought you might get to the stage where you're like totally zen, nothing bothers you whatsoever, and everything's just totally calm.
It'd be good if we lived in a Buddhist sanctuary.
Yeah, but it never comes, and really, it sounds a bit weird, but I understand now why it won't come, because we're constantly learning, and if something's brought to us, it's brought to us for a reason. If it triggers us, it's triggering something inside that we need to look at or resolve or grow.
Yeah, and I just want to make a point there as well when you were talking about, what we got to understand, that everybody's come back to play a specific role, and I think this is why it's important to observe people rather than make judgment.
Yeah.
That people come back when you mentioned about the politicians, and I've seen this in a very different perspective these past couple of years, is that people have come back to play shadowy work or roles to invoke and to awaken the light side. We need the dark, if you want to call it the dark. We need the dark to awaken the light. But this is why when we talk about people that, and I'm again not coming from a place of judgment, where people say, masters, I'm a master of this, and it'll be quite easy for anyone to say, oh, well, this is coming from a place of ego. Well, yes and no, but maybe people have come back to have that experience, so that we create, before we reincarnate, we create and plan our tests. Remember, spirit don't test us, but we create our own tests before we create our own lessons. So maybe certain people have come back to play those specific roles so that it's part of their lesson, part of their test. So we don't have a right to judge anybody. And I just want to make one more point, is for years I used to say, and sort of I had this feeling in my heart that where we talk about judgment is a big failure of mine, because I'm so quick to judge somebody. And really, actually, what I've come back to learn, and this has only came to be in a meditation about 2 months ago, after 36 years of living on this planet, is only just recently, this epiphany came into my brain.
But at least you got there in the end.
Yes, is that I've not come back. I have not come back to stop judging. I've come back to understand that actually it's hard, Stephen, isn't it? It's not easy. And I think that was the lesson. The lesson is, at the end of the day, we've got human nature. We will stumble, we will fall, we will opinionate, we will judge, we will hurt people unintentionally and intentionally. But when it comes down to it, my lesson in all this is it's not easy. So wherever I am, or wherever I was on the astral plane, in the spirit realms, I might have looked down and said, "Wow, that's pretty easy. Why are they not getting it right? Come on, human race, get it right." And actually, as I've come back to the earth, and actually thinking, "Oops, this is a bit harder than I thought." Don't judge. Show humility, show respect, show gratitude. So that's sort of where I'm at the moment.
Beam me back up. It's too late. You're in.
You can't. I would ask you.
I think that's a good point. Just one moment. You can hold on to that question for a minute. Is what I wanted to pick up on there, because it's important, because there is a lot of, I feel a lot of tension sometimes in the air, and it feels like, every time something happens in a world, say somebody pulls out when they're driving, or they make a mistake, and there's a lot that seems so ready to jump and project that anger, and to me, just everybody's in their own way is trying the best, and that's all we can do. Like you say, everybody's playing a role, and sometimes actually by trying to rescue somebody who is quite happy as they are for whatever reason can cause more of a problem to them. Everything has to be sought out. I've always said, with the spiritual movement, it doesn't work having a plaque or knocking on people's doors. I don't think that works, because if somebody's drawn to something, they will seek it out. That's that saying, what you're seeking is actually seeking you. It finds its way. And when you were saying before about the sort of grand plan of the universe, the way I think about it lately is, like, we have parts of a jigsaw, and we're like, sometimes, well, I can't make sense of this, I don't understand it. And then by the time this life is finished, that jigsaw will be complete, and we'll look at it all in all its facets and say, well, now I understand completely what this journey was. So
I
fire
really
away
want
with
to
your
go
question.
back. No. I just want to go. You're making a fantastic point there, because I feel when we observe people and when we observe ourselves, I find in my little wisdom and an observer is that they just feel, yes, people choose to play certain roles and they create their own lessons and tests. It does get this feeling of unnecessary suffering. I do feel that, you can't rescue people, and there are people that choose a role and choose a path. As an observer point of view, is why are you taking that? Why are you doing that? Why are you creating such suffering and sorrow? Why are you holding on to that trauma, that pain? So I feel, yes, we create our own plan. There is this feeling of things being the hard way, people doing things the hard way, where it is this unnecessary suffering. And I do it, and I look back and say, oh, why did I put myself through that? I could have made things easier for myself, and it doesn't have to be hard. I mean, when we look at, we were the other day when we were talking about on the podcast animal healing, and there is this conversation, this narrative, this toxic narrative where people are made, or I know you can't make people feel guilty. There is this projection. If you eat meat, you're not a good person. You're not a spiritual person. So almost when you're around people, you feel like you don't want to mention that sometimes you eat meat. And I feel that I get this feeling is eating meat, it's okay, actually. However, what I'm not happy with is, and I think what Spirit are very sad about, is the suffering that comes with the slaughter of animals, where, again, don't want to go back to what we were discussing the day, where, years ago, people only hunted what they needed, only ate meat once a week, that was shared in the tribe. It's this unnecessary suffering. And really, when we're talking about feeling, and you say this often, don't you, Chris? Oh, I'm feeling this heaviness in the atmosphere. There's a full moon and feeling this. And I feel what's happening is where I didn't feel that 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, but I'm feeling that more now, like you, like so many other people. They say, I'm feeling that as well. It's because we all belong to the spider's web, don't we? We are all interconnected. So, of course, we're going to feel each other. We're going to feel as things are being lifted, things being healed, things being cleansed.
Yeah, you're absolutely. I was just view. There's about 10 points I wanted to pick on there. You made some good, and one of them was about. I think you're absolutely right. I stopped. I think I stopped drinking about a year ago. I stopped eating red meat and things, but I avoid labels because it seems as soon as you say I am this, I am that, which is unnecessary anyway, you're putting that restraint on yourself to say I will never have that thing. Where I'll tell you now, if I was drawn to eat something that my body was saying you need that, I would do it. And I feel we all have that freedom, so it's breaking away from labels, and also it's like every change has to be natural. And I look at this with things going on, when you see what's going on in the world. I'm not going to name any groups in particular because for what it's worth, I think a lot of them are actors, what we see, particularly in protests. I don't feel they're genuine, uh, you know, to cause more trouble. But everything has to be natural. And this is why we come back to everything begins with you. So don't sit there. I'm not going to sit there and tell Stephen, right, Stephen, you've got to stop eating eggs. You shouldn't be eating eggs. And I'm just going to talk to him and batter him. And if he doesn't listen, I'm going to get a pack of eggs and I'm going to throw them at him as well. And it's just going to get nowhere. That all he's going to do is he's going to get very angry with me and say, oh, God, I'm sick of listening to that guy. And to me, the best way to be is if I feel that, to follow it And then maybe one day Stephen might be saying, "Oh, Chris, can I ask you why did you stop eating such and such?" Well, here's what I did. Oh, that's really interesting. You see that natural, and
Mm,
all it's like we're talking now. It's no good anybody giving anything up or changing their lifestyle just because Chris or Stephen said, or just because someone said it. It will not sustain. Although people could be great guides and inspire us, things can inspire us, but the actual change to do it and the willingness to do it has to come from us, and it has to be totally natural. And then,
yeah.
as it's natural, it will be more sustainable. It won't last a month, it'll last a lifetime. But what we're seeing in the world really at the moment, particularly on television, is more not as in, I know people mention like the Hunger Games society, but if you've ever watched that, the TV and the presenters are very theatrical. And what we're seeing on is a role being played out by politicians and TV presenters and that. And it's actually becoming more and more theatrical, if you look, and more ridiculous with the latest with Yunu going in the jungle, things like that. It's showing us something. This is becoming, this is silliness. This is what's playing out, and we're giving our power to these people. So actually, in a way, the great teachers, it's showing us. It's all showing us something, and that's a good way to look at it. You
But
look
I
at the last
think,
couple of
Chris,
years.
I just want to mention there,
Yeah,
it's again coming back to what this talks about is about awakening. It's about questioning, and
yeah,
really it's look at things. Why are things like that trying to distract us? It's about
yeah,
keeping us in the mind, keeping us divided,
yeah.
because
I
that's all
agree.
that is about. And really it's
Yeah,
not a time of being divided, it's about time to get together.
it's like a dancing clown in the corner that say, "Look at me, look at me, look at
Yeah.
me," and all the reason we're watching it dance and going, "Oh, isn't that
Mm,
silly?" Da, da, da. We're forgetting what we should be doing, or giving time to things that are more nourishing to our mind,
yeah.
body, and spirit, which I feel is a good transition um, to many out there who might be feeling anxious or feeling tired or feeling stuck in a rut. That there are so many ways that cost actually zero, that you can do. Connecting with nature, meditating, looking at all these health and well-being tips and advisement. And there's so many people out there, including ourselves, doing a lot of wonderful work that we can receive guidance from, that can help us in what is more nourishing for ourselves and our bodies as we transition into a new earth, a new world. And when we talk about that, and when we talked about animals in our last episode, we talk about a world where everyone is equal and everybody is loved and respected. But with a little ways to go just yet. We've got things to learn yet.
Well, I'll just give you a bit of an example there. I mean, talk about personal experience. I felt, and I think it's important to share these experiences because I'm sure people will maybe have felt the same. Is that what was happening? Is when I was used to watch the news, I stopped watching the news, and I stopped about 95% of anything to do with TV. I don't watch anymore. I even got rid of the mainstream TV and I just watch certain programs. Is that I was questioning why am I sat there and I was watching the news and I thought I'm getting high rate here. I'm getting palpitations. And I'm watching. I watched this show called, I think it was called Jack Ryan, and I was watching some other shows, and I was getting high rate, and I was getting angry. And I thought, why am I feeling this way? And things are being triggered, but I just felt that this fear, this narrative. So what I was trying to say to people is that question how you are feeling. How does this TV program, how does this piece of news making you feel? And it's a lot of it is fear, is this narrative, this black magic, this energy that is being tried to push onto us. And what I do, what is the magic thing, Chris? Don't put the TV on, don't watch it. Don't watch these things. Just don't watch it. And has my life been any different? No, it's not. Not watch the news. There's nothing in the
Well,
news that invigorates me or empowers me. Nothing. So I just don't watch it anymore because it's making me feel miserable.
yeah, I totally agree, and I've gone the sort of same path. And something I was thinking about the other day, and this is when I'm talking about the UK, really. My experiences, I was thinking about when we actually only used to have 4 channels at one time. Might be giving away my age a little bit there, but and how actually there was probably in most houses the one television that was in the front room. So at the very least, then, although you still had that degree of programming, you were all sort of at least coming together. And now that's spiraled off into thousands of different channels. And it is very simple. If something doesn't feel right, it's not making you feel good. My advisement is switch it off. During the last couple of years, I've been drawn away. If I feel there's a narrative in a program that's trying to instill fear into me, it's going off. But as well as that, there are many wonderful programs that are, should we say, of delight that can be very inspiring as well. But I think Stephen's absolutely spot on with that. Just switch it off and find something more nourishing. And what's great is what we're doing now, and many others listen to podcasts or watch them on many different platforms. Some great people out there having great conversations. Interact with people. We're saying with a friend of ours today. There is always that duality with everything, and obviously there's been a rise in people using Zoom and such like we are now. But also the positives of that are that we've been able to connect worldwide, and we're connecting more. So there's good in that. Yeah. So seek
Why do you think?
seek
Why do you
seek
think
things
that?
that are nourishing.
Why do you think TV programs called program? Because it
Yeah, that's it.
programs you. Look at the wording. But let me go to I want to change the conversation a little bit, Chris, divert the conversation a little bit
Right.
to really what the Collective Awakening podcast is all about is questioning questioning why is this happening. But I get this feeling, and I don't know how you feel, so I really want you to answer this question, that a lot of what's happening in the awakening process, the process of awakening, is awareness. Yes, we talk about awareness, your consciousness awakening, but isn't it also about remembering? Because, and going back to what Graham Hancock says, is that humanity for nearly 20,000 years has been on this state of this amnesia, this feeling of being asleep. So why is it important in the awakening progress remembering? Talk about your experience, Crystal. Are you remembering who you are? Are you this powerful,
Yeah.
beautiful light?
I think you've sort of hit the nail on the head, and it's actually talked about in the book Conversations with God. If anybody's read that a big part of returning to the earth, playing a big role, is actually remembering who we are. So I agree with that amnesia, and what's this is where everything plays a role, with even our history being distorted. It's for us to uncover, and how do we uncover it? Part of the way we can is remembering who we are, and that knowledge is always within. It's, in a way, we're not learning it, we're remembering it. This is why things resonate with us, and feel right to us, because we know them already. So that's something I've kind of feel I've always done that, in the sense of, if something feels right, I feel like, oh yeah, I know that already. And being in that natural flow state, you'll be surprised what you come out with and what you can do. And then you find yourself breaking away from judgment, because it feels so right that you really start to care less about what people
Mm.
think, because, oh, this just feels so right. It's right for me. So you find yourself expressing yourself, perhaps as you've never done before, and that can be done through many ways. Perhaps doing inspirational writings, perhaps taking on a new hobby or task, perhaps becoming a musician or using the voice, perhaps becoming a clairvoyant, a reader, a teacher, all these things. and breaking away from, what should we say, the system thinks you should be. But also, I think, in short, it's a huge part of our reincarnation is to remember who we are. And we're all, very simply put, powerful beings of light. We're powerful creators. We don't realize every time we open our mouth, we're creating something. So this is where they say, be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, and Dolores Cannon talks about it in the three waves, doesn't she? That some people have come back to experience the creation process. We are part of God. We are part of the creation code. And a lot of us have come back to create what we think, we manifest, our thoughts are living things. We're here to create. We, like you said, Chris, we are powerful beings of light. And when people realize that, they won't be susceptible to fear, manipulation, the distortions, the illusions of this matrix that people feel trapped in. And that's the big thing, really, in the collective awakening process, is people saying, well, who am I? Well, we say to people, you are, first and foremost, you are a soul, you are a spirit in a physical body. You are here for a purpose, you are here for a reason. And you are a powerful being of light. You don't be submissive, don't be passive, get into your power. And that's really, really important. So in the awakening process, so we talk about divine purpose here as well, Chris. I mean, sort of sharing your experience, you were quite lucky because we sat in circle for a lot of years, so we received a lot of guidance and knowledge during the very early years, where we talked about the inner knowledge that we here reincarnated here for a reason. But I don't feel it wasn't until probably 5-6 years ago when we started a little bit more of the deeper work did we really understand sort of our divine purpose. And do you know your divine purpose?
Well, I think it's a journey, like you're saying, and everything comes in its right time. The circle we sat in on what we experienced at that time was right for that moment because we were still breaking away from things. And it's interesting, our journey of being invited into a circle, and we were really doing the typical thing that 20-year-olds sort of do at that time. But in a short space of time, we kind of decided now this is the natural change again, that those things we weren't feeling they were nourishing us, and they were feeling there was something on the spiritual path that we wanted to pursue. So I feel the first part of our evolution into that circle really was just shedding those layers and coming into that knowledge, and then receiving those simple spiritual truth, which again resonated. And this feels so right. I would like
Yeah.
more of it. I want to hear more because it feels right. And so everything is of its time, if that makes sense. It's like you could say, if I didn't receive that knowledge 10 years ago, would I be ready for what's happening now? So, and actually, your grounding is very important. I feel we have been fortunate and to receive some very good grounding in our teachings. So, no matter what may sort of fall or what happens, we've always got a good grounding that we can come back to and rebuild again. Um, so, I feel like once you sort of find yourself on that level, and you're able to perhaps find people who guide or you resonate with, or teachers, even could be in a book, then you sort of get that grounding over years. And I'm going to bring it in a little bit here. I feel sometimes, um, I mean, we're very fortunate to be in our circle, but you meet people on mediumship path and all that that've gone out there straight away, and you think, I think that grounding is very important, and having that knowledge, and sitting. Um, a good friend of ours, years and years ago, somebody who was serving a medium in the Purple Mountain, and he went in to a church, and this is what you'd call, but it's a long time ago. And he said, I want to be a medium. I want to work with spirit." And the lady actually threw him out and said, "Go away when you've learned about yourself. You need to learn about yourself. Who are you?" And actually did go back eventually, and she did teach him, and he was very grateful because it was words in truth. You're not ready for you need to learn about yourself first. This is where, at the moment, another thing you see in the world is there's a lot of projection of, well, I want you to acknowledge me for different reasons. Where again, if we truly know who we are, we're not seeking that acknowledgement. We don't need it.
Yeah, and a sort of the point I want to bring in there is when we are awakening, when we have that inner awakening, and that awareness grows, and we follow our divine purpose, when we start listening, I think the development, the self development is really important as well. That needs nourishing and nurturing as well, because I feel that in that process, it can be. I mean, we were lucky; we had a lot of like minded people. Like you keep mentioning about being grounded, a lot of people don't have that. So really, development takes a lifelong, and this what gets my back up sometimes when people say, "Well, that's it now. I'm a medium. I'm a healer. I'm a therapist." And I say it's a lifelong journey. It's a lifelong devotion, a lifelong discipline. It's every day is an opportunity for self work, self growth, self development, and never stops. You cannot become a master of anything. You never ever reach that. It's just a continuation. And really, again, maybe learning all these things is another illusion, because really, again, looking outwardly, everything's within. So,
Just I want to touch on there, Stephen, because I know we've thrown a lot out there, but what I would want to share and put into this is, in all this that we've spoken about, is please on this journey do not be too hard on yourself and go into self punishment. Go with the flow. Just try and look at things. If we make
yeah.
mistakes, that's part of living and learning. It's good to just look at them, acknowledge them, and do what we need to do, but don't linger there. And being in that self punishment really won't serve you, and it won't serve the people around you either. So go easy on yourselves on this journey.
And also a very useful tip. Thanks, Chris. I mean, I've got to remind myself of that all the time, because I'm incredibly hard with myself, and I know you are. Is also the magic word is help. If you are struggling, and people find this very hard to believe, is ask spirit for help. Ask your ancestors. I know we're coming to the end of the podcast here, but I just want to touch upon a little bit of the ancestral work here.
Hopefully
The
not.
ancestor, no, but the ancestors is ask your guides, ask your guides and your helpers, your loved ones in spirit, for help. If you are struggling, if you are having a bit of a bad week and you need a bit of guidance, you need a bit of counsel, don't be afraid to ask for help. Those voices might not come straight away, but spirit will leave signs. Spirit, our ancestors, they are empowering us, they are behind us, they are guiding us in this great time of inner awakening and collective awakening as well. Hence what this podcast is all about: collective, global awakening. We can't just awaken in ourselves. We have got to awaken together and call on your ancestors. I know I had these past few days, I had some incredibly powerful dreams on the astral, and I know you find dreams very powerful as well, Chris, that particularly in this line of work is a great way for our ancestors to contact us, to connect with us, isn't it? For us to waken up from our dream state, from the astral state, and to remember, again, that word
Well,
remember.
it's it always interests me that in the we'll just call it the lockdown period, that first one, there was actually so many people, and they had phone-ins on some of the radio stations about dreams, because people were dreaming so much. And that's interesting to me, because obviously a lot of people weren't working at the time, so obviously they were able to get that deep sleep to really do a lot of astral travel and dreaming. So absolutely what you're saying. And something I was reminded of when we came across some of the teachings of Dolores Cannon, and I knew this from years ago, but from time to time, Spirit, the universe can send us these reminders. And of course, we're never on our own. But the thing is, if you really feel backed into a corner, you can always ask for help. If it comes from the heart, that call will be heard every single time.
Yeah, our ancestors, it's a time of our ancestors at this moment. Our loved ones in spirit, in as we invoke their memory, we are bringing forth that power and that inner energy. We're remembering, we are awakening in this great time, and the dream state, the astral way, it's a lovely opportunity for our ancestors to really draw close, because during the day we're so busy with things, with family and work, and our ancestors said, "You're not listening, Stephen, Chris, you're not listening again. Let's meet on the astral, let's have a bit of a chat." And a lot, majority of the time, we do come back and we do remember those messages. So spirit is a great way for our ancestors, our guides, to come close to us in our dream state. I mean, I had this really vivid dream a couple of days ago where I woke up and spirit said, "You need to do more traveling next year. You need to go to Romania and you need to go to Portugal." For some reason, I don't know what that reason's yet, is part of the surprise. I need to connect with Romania and I need to connect with Portugal in some way moving forward, because that's where my spirit is being called to. So we're constantly doing the work, aren't we, Chris?
It's always ever folding, unfolding journey. And yeah, as I always say, it's a great time to be alive. It is. It's a great time for the spirit to learn and grow. So I hope you've all enjoyed this. Thank you for listening. Anybody who's been listening or watching live, and anybody who wants to leave any feedbacks in the comments or wherever you're listening or watching to us, we just welcome that. Perhaps subjects that you'd be interested in or questions, feel free to contact myself or Stephen and have a look on the Purple Mountain and everything we do. And we're just sending our love on your journey. And until we speak again, friends, goodbye. Thank you for watching the Collective Awakening podcast. For more information on the Purple Mountain Spiritual and Wellbeing Centre, you can visit our website at thepurplemountain.co.uk, and don't forget to click and subscribe.